All right, everybody. Good late morning. We're getting through Thursday here, and it's time for the next section of free agency discussion. And as you can see, if you look at the screen right now, if you take a look at the spreadsheet that I have up, you can see that we've gotten through most of the stuff that right now we as Seahawks fans should be focused on. We've done all the positions of high need, medium need, and low need. So theoretically, we are now at the point where everything we're doing is more frivolous and a luxury. However, we do need to know that things can change and things can change quickly, and better to be ready for things to change than assume they're not going to change and then be taken by surprise when they do change. So we are now onto the tier of free agents that I labeled as having no need. And there's a decent chunk of positions here. It's the longest list here. But I think we all understand that with some of these positions, things can change. Now, today we're going to be doing running back. We're going to take a look at free agent running backs. I don't know if I would expect anything to change here. You have Ken Walker on the last year of his rookie deal. Logically speaking, he fits in well with Kubiak's offense, so I don't know why we'd move off of him. You're not going to get anything for him if you move off of him anyway. He doesn't have value at the moment, so I don't know why you would do that. Charbonnet has 2 years left on his rookie deal, so I don't know why you'd move off of him. And he did prove last year he can be an effective player in the right context. He's a good running back, so I don't know why you'd move off of him. Kenny McIntosh has 2 years left on his rookie deal and has flashed a couple of positive things when he's been out there. So, admittedly, this is not a position where I expect the Seahawks to have any kind of need. And I don't think there's a lot that can happen realistically that is going to change that. Nevertheless, we're going to be exhaustive here. We're going to go through it. Shouldn't take more than a handful of videos. I don't think it'll take very long. There are not a lot of super appealing running backs in free agency this year. And you never know when the knowledge might end up helping you down the line. So let's go ahead and take a look at the free agent running backs for the 2025 offseason. There are some pretty good ones. There are some pretty valuable ones. There's no Saquon from last year. Saquon was kind of a unicorn in that he made it to the market while still being extremely valuable. But there are going to be some names that get paid decent amounts of money. I don't think there are going to be any stars or high-end starters, but there are going to be mid-level starters, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video. So the first guy is Najee Harris. He is probably going to be the crown jewel of this free agency period. Just about to turn 27, turns 27 right before free agency starts. Former first-round pick, made a Pro Bowl as a rookie, and I mean, he's been consistently good for the Steelers. I would say that he depends heavily on playing every game, and there is value there. He's played every game since he entered the NFL, 17-game starter every season, so he's getting his touches. Just by existing, he's getting the ball in his hands. We can see that. And he's also doing a little bit of work as a receiver, not a lot. He's not a dynamic receiver, but he's fine. But for me personally, this is an example of a player who benefits more from quantity than actual quality. Doesn't even average 4 yards a carry. He's not an over-the-top great receiver. He does catch a lot of passes, but those passes tend to not go for big plays. And to me, he is just kind of in that, I would almost say, a little better than middle of the road as far as running backs go. I don't see anything super exciting with him other than the fact that he stays on the field. And there's value there. But this guy's gotten to 1,000 rushing yards in each of his first 4 seasons. The last 3 years, he has barely gotten there. He's gotten there by 30 to 40 yards in 17 games. Getting 1,000 rushing yards when you play and start all 17 games is not really all that compelling. That's 60 yards a game, 60 to 61 yards a game. So to me, this is a guy who is pretty good, but I don't see anything here that marks him as an equivalent to a Saquon Barkley even. And I'm not the biggest Saquon Barkley fan in the world, but there is a potential with him far beyond what we see from Najee Harris. He just grinds out his 1,000 yards, and that's about it. PFF does think he's good, but remember, he's a running back. Running backs tend to get a lot of credit from PFF compared to other positions. 77.9 was his grade last year, but that was 14th among running backs that qualified. So good, but not remarkable. You would expect this kind of a grade to rank much higher, but halfbacks, they get graded very highly here compared to others' positions. And the same thing the previous year, by the way, 78.1, which sounds really good, but it was only 14th among 58 running backs that qualified. So realistically, he's good, but if PFF is to be taken as a meaningful metric, he's not even that close to the top 10, and I think that's actually a pretty fair way to evaluate Najee Harris at this point. Spotrac says 3 years, $27.5 million. That is $9.2 million per season. 9.2, that would make him higher paid than a guy like a Tony Pollard. That would put him on about the same plane as a guy like a David Montgomery. It's not as much as Saquon got, of course, but it's a significant amount of money and would put him near the top of the running back ranks. And I guess that's reasonable. He does deserve to get paid for his durability and his ability to stay on the field, but it's just not something that would terribly excite me if I wanted a running back, which, look, I don't. I don't anyway. It's not like I would even consider signing this guy. I will say he is about to come into his physical prime, but he's a running back. I don't know how much that means. If anything, running back is one position where turning 27 might not be a good thing. You might prefer it when you're 24 or 25. So, I don't know. Just not my bag. Next guy, a mid-level starter, Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams, about to turn 25, so he's got youth on his side, but there's one thing he does not have on his side, dependability. Javonte Williams had a nice rookie season in 2021, made a lot of plays in the running game, was efficient, was effective, caught the ball a pretty good amount. There was some really good stuff going on with Javonte, and then the next year he played 4 games and tapped out. He suffered a devastating injury, and it was actually considered to be a surprise that he got back on his feet so quickly the next year, but he was not the same player, and he has not been the same player ever since the injury. He has been very inefficient. He's, I know he's fumbled a little bit. I know over the last couple years, not critically so, but he has been a little bit of a fumbler, and he hasn't been quite as dynamic as a snap-to-snap threat. His yards per carry average has plummeted to well below 4. There's just not much to say about Javonte Williams other than he's just kind of turned into a pretty generic running back. He was pretty clearly not the best running back on Denver last year. They gave him every opportunity, and other players just plain looked a little bit better. And Javonte, in some regards, kind of turned into like a pass receiving running back more than anything. He caught over 50 passes, and I guess in that role he did okay, right? It's still not anything overly exciting, and maybe he gets back to form from 2021, but maybe not. That injury happened 2.5 years ago almost now, and what I've seen the last 2 years has been a very forgettable running back. And unlike Najee Harris, you can't even depend on him really. So PFF thought he was pretty poor last year. 61.1 doesn't sound that bad, and maybe it's not, but that's 41st among running backs. That's right near the bottom. So they didn't like him last year. Year before, not much better. 63.3 sounds better, but it wasn't even in the top 50, and only 58 running backs got ranked. So we can definitely give a guy some grace for coming back from a big injury, but we just don't know if this guy's actually going to be able to come back and get back to what he was. We'd be theorizing. It'd be hypothetical. And Spotrac thinks you're going to have to pay a significant amount of money to find out because he does have pedigree and he does have previous examples of success. 6.9 million, so 3 years, 20.6 million. Yeah, definitely not doing that. That's more than Devin Singletary. That's on the level of a James Conner. And what I saw from Javonte last year was a player that is unlikely to get back to what he was. And I'd rather spend the extra money on Najee Harris. And I don't want Najee Harris, so that should let you know how much I'm not into this. This sounds like a trap to me. So maybe I'm not ruling it out, but I would not be the team that spends over 20 million bucks to find out. Okay, next guy kind of came out of nowhere in 2024, Rico Dowdle. Rico Dowdle of the Dallas Cowboys, replacing Tony Pollard from last year. It was considered by a lot of people to be kind of a joke that they were going to try to replace a good player like Tony Pollard with Rico Dowdle, an undrafted rookie who had not done very much before in his career. But he actually did okay. And now he's about to turn 27. He doesn't have big miles on him. This might actually be something. This might actually work out for whoever signs him. Last year was his only year as a full-time starter. Did pretty well. He actually averaged over 4.5 yards a carry, had close to 1,100 yards. Again, I don't think getting to 1,000 yards in the modern NFL at running back when you play 17 or almost 17 games. This guy missed one game last year. Should be exciting, but given where this guy came from, it actually is pretty good. He's not a great receiver, by the way, so he's not adding a lot there, but he did show the ability to at least be a capable, competent running back. And I think that if you want to look at him as a starter for the 2025 season, you could probably get away with it because of the nature of the running back position. On the right team with a good enough passing attack to support him and a good enough offensive line, yeah, Rico Dowdle could probably be a capable starter for you. You're not going to be blown away by anything, but he'll be solid. PFF thought he was about average last year, 21st out of 47 halfbacks, so that's about right. You're hoping that he can tap into something a little bit better in 2025. You're hoping that his progression as a player will help, right? Because in 2023, he played a little bit, and then last year was his first year as a starter. You're hoping he can tap into something a little bit better going forward. And the year before that, when he barely played, he was ranked near the bottom. So you're hoping that there is a little bit of progression, but I could see this one working out. I could see a team signing Rico Dowdle, getting him as a starter, and ending up pretty happy with what they get. Excuse me. Botrack says 1 year, 6.2 million. I think he's going to get multi-year, honestly. He's young. He doesn't have a lot of miles on him. I think there's a team out there that would give him at least 2 years, maybe more. Justice Hill got 2 years just off the top of my head. And Justice Hill, I don't think that he's ever had a season as good as what Rico did last year. So I could see like 2 years, 12 million, or 3 years, 18 million. If I needed a halfback, I'd be okay with that. Wouldn't fall over myself to do it, and I'm certainly not doing it with where the Seahawks are currently situated, but not a bad idea. Okay, final guy for this video, the last mid-level starter halfback I see in this free agency, Aaron Jones. This is the veteran. This is the guy who's been around a little while, so proceed with caution. He's going to turn 31 in December, so age is definitely starting to become a thing. He's got miles on him. He was a rookie in 2017. In 2017, Tom Cable was the Seahawks offensive line coach, and Darrell Bevell was the offensive coordinator. So, something to think about when you're evaluating this guy's value. But he had a good year last year for the Vikings, over 1,100 yards, over 50 catches. So he's going to get something. He's definitely going to get something. Had a good career in Green Bay. Initially as kind of a backup. Then he segued into being a full-time player, and he's been a consistent, solid contributor, has occasionally flirted with a yard per carry average well above 5. Probably not going to do that anymore, but he's still more efficient than Najee Harris, still way more efficient than a guy like a Javonte Williams. So I think that Aaron Jones is going to come into some pretty decent 2025 money. PFF thought he was pretty good last year. Not top 15, but close among halfbacks, 75.8. So, hey, I'll certainly take that from a guy who was turning 30 by December. And the year before that, when he was still with the Packers, 76, which isn't even top 20 for a halfback, but it still shows that he's a good all-around player. So I don't think Aaron Jones is going to come into big money because of his age, and I think teams have learned you don't want to give big long-term money to a halfback that is over 30. Botrex says 1 year, $5.6 million. I think that's probably about right, right? I think that's probably about what you're looking at. That's a little bit less than the Vikings gave him, and I know he had a good year, but you're just not going to see a running back at the age of 30 going on 31 by the late part of the season come into a big multi-year contract anymore. Teams have learned their lesson. So 1 year, $5.6 million. I think you're going to get your money's worth from that. I think you're going to be okay with that. Of course, I don't think the Seahawks need to do it, but somebody will, and I think that team is going to be pretty satisfied with what they get. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. We have more running back stuff to take a look at later today. I know that from a Seahawks perspective, it's not the most compelling thing in the world, but we have to do our homework. We have to get ready, and we have to make sure that we know what's up. All right. See you guys later. Go Hawks. Let me know what you think about this crop.